They say the woods keep their own census, that for every creature you see, there is another that sees you. And in the fog-draped valleys of California, in the hour when the night is at its deepest, something walks on legs too thin to be real. The first stories emerged from Fresno in the late 2000s, not from drunkards or liars, but from homeowners with security cameras. The footage was always the same, grainy, infrared, silent. It showed a pair of white, bipedal figures walking. Their gait was a slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial procession, a pair of silent pilgrims in the dark. The locals, when they'd talk at all, called them the night crawlers. They weren't monsters, not in any traditional sense. They didn't snarl or stalk. They simply passed through. They were watchers, and their observation was a silent, chilling verdict all its own. This is the story of a man named Eli. He lived in a cabin at the edge of the Sequoia National Forest. A practical man, a former park ranger. He'd heard the stories, seen the blurry videos online. He called it mass hysteria, a trick of the light. But one November night, his motion sensor light tripped, not at the front of the property, but deep in the back, near the old well he never used. He grabbed his light and went out. The air was still. The crickets had gone quiet. It was the kind of silence that feels deliberate. And then he saw them, not on his camera, in his yard. They were taller than he imagined. Their skin wasn't skin, it was like a bleached canvas, glowing with a faint, internal light. And they were perfectly still. He expected to feel fear, but what he felt was worse, a profound, soul-deep wrongness, as if the laws of nature had been paused. Their stillness was an accusation. Then, the one in front took a step, its leg lifted in a natural arc, like a needle being drawn through cloth, and then placed down without a sound. It made no sound, no crunch of twig, no squelch of mud. The earth itself did not acknowledge its step. They began to walk, and as they moved, Eli felt a cold that had nothing to do with the air. It was the cold of deep space, of a place before time. The light from his flashlight seemed to dim as they passed through its beam. The second one stopped and looked at him. He didn't see eyes, but he felt the weight of its gaze. It was a void, an ancient, patient nothingness that was taking a record of his soul. When the sun rose, Eli was gone. The only things left were his footprints in the mud, leading to the spot where they stood, and then, nothing. No struggle, no drag marks, just an absence. The official report listed him as missing, but the people in the towns nearby, they know. They'll tell you, in hushed tones at the general store, that the Watchers don't take anything, they only observe. But to be observed by them is to be erased from their ledger, to become a story that never was. So the next time your motion light flickers on in the dead of night, don't look for eyes in the darkness. Look for the spaces between the trees. Look for the things that walk without sound, and pray they are only passing through. Pray they don't stop to look back. Some stories don't end with a disappearance. They begin with one. In the silence left behind, the echoes grow louder, and you start to hear the shape of what was taken. Maya refused to let her brother become just another campfire tale. She saw the hole he left in the world, a hole shaped like a man, but filled with a cold, unnatural stillness. Her investigation led her down a path the official reports never touched. She found older stories, whispered legends from the Miwok and Yakuts peoples of the Sierras. They spoke of the TPIIP, the silent walkers. They weren't considered evil, but as omens. They were said to appear before a great silence fell upon a place, a silence that meant the land itself was holding its breath before a change, or a death. Driven by a grief that had sharpened into obsession, Maya went to the cabin. She had to see for herself. She wasn't looking for monsters, she was looking for evidence. For a reason, she spent her first night in a fortress of technology, listening, and on the second night, the silence returned. But this time, it was different. It wasn't an absence of sound, it was a sound being consumed. It was waiting, and in the heart of that terrible, humming silence, Maya heard it, not with her ears, but in her mind, a voice that was like the sound of dry reeds rubbing together. She didn't know why she went out, perhaps to prove she wasn't afraid, or perhaps some part of her, the part that was his sister, needed to demand an answer from the void. What are you? What did you do with my brother? And the answer came, not as a word, but as an image, projected directly into her mind. A vision of Eli, not screaming, not fighting, but simply unraveling. His memories, his voice, his very presence dissolving like mist in a beam of light, drawn into the silent, waiting form of the Watcher. They don't take bodies, they take echoes. They are archivists of the lost, and their collection is the silence that follows a life. Maya came back from the cabin. She had her evidence, a dead recorder and a story no one would believe. But she brought something else back with her, a void. The memory of that silence has filled her, pushing out her grief, her anger, until all that's left is a quiet, hollow peace. She knows now they are not just in the woods. They are wherever the silence is deep enough to hold them. They are the census takers of the forgotten, and once they have taken your echo, a part of you is compelled to follow, to become part of the silence, to walk. So be careful of the quiet moments, the spaces between your heartbeats. That is where they listen. And if you ever feel a memory slip away too easily, if a loved one's face seems harder to recall, it may not be your mind failing you. It may just be the collection growing. There is peace in surrender, in finally understanding that you are not the hunter, but the witness. The story does not belong to you. You belong to the story. I have learned to listen to the silence. It has much to say. For 10 years. Maya has walked the spaces between. She became a student of the void the Watchers inhabit. She discovered they are not random. They follow ancient, unseen pathways, tied to the magnetic pulse of the earth itself. They appear where the fabric of memory is thin. They are drawn to places of great, collective loss. Not to feed, but to clean. They are the white blood cells of reality, scouring the wounds of the world, absorbing the traumatic echoes so the land can forget, so it can heal. She knew the convergence was coming. A celestial alignment that would thin the veil to its breaking point. The great silence would descend, and the walkers would come not as a pair, but as a procession. And then, they came. A river of white, flowing through the gray, an assembly of absence. They did not look at the cabin. They were focused on their path, a path that led to a place of terrible, forgotten violence, a valley where two tribes had clashed centuries ago. A memory so bloody the land had never been able to swallow it. She followed them to the heart of the wound, and in that circle, she saw them. Not the walkers, but the echoes. Faint, translucent forms of the long-dead warriors, locked in their eternal, silent battle. A recording of anguish playing on a loop. And then the Watchers began their work. With each silent step, the ghostly battle began to fade. The shimmering forms unraveled like thread, their anger, their fear, their very last memories being drawn out of them, absorbed into the pure, white forms of the Watchers. This was the truth. They are not monsters. They are the gardeners of history, pruning the dead branches of trauma, so the tree can live. They offer the only true peace, oblivion. And as the procession ended, one of them remained. It stood before her, and in its blank, featureless form, she saw a flicker, not of Ella's face, but of his feelings. A memory of his love for her, of the peace he felt in these woods, purified of all the pain and fear of his end. It was not a curse they carried, but a library, an archive of souls, finally at rest. And at that moment, Maya was not afraid to join them. She had a choice, to return to the world of noise and struggle, carrying this impossible truth, or to follow, and add her own story to the great, silent history. They are still out there, walking the borders of our memory. They are the silence after the storm, the peace at the end of all things. Do not fear them, just listen.